The La Perla silk pajamas were a birthday gift to myself last year, pale dove gray with delicate ivory piping, the fabric whispering against my skin like a secret. I kept them in the top drawer of my bedroom armoire, wrapped in tissue paper, only worn on nights when I needed to feel like the woman I was before the miscarriage, before the quiet tension settled into the rooms of our Upper East Side apartment like fine dust. That Tuesday morning that I found them in a crumpled heap at the bottom of the hamper in the laundry room, splattered with what looked like red wine and something dark and oily. The stain was deliberate. It wasn't a spill, it was a crime scene. The silk was ruined. A cold knot tightened in my stomach. I walked slowly back to the master bedroom. Everything looked orderly. The plush, white duvet neatly made the morning sun cutting a sharp line across the antique Persian rug. But I knew my space. The air smelled faintly of lemon polish and something else, a cheap floral perfume that wasn't mine. My eyes went to the ormolu-mounted bedside table, David's side. The top drawer was closed, but not perfectly flush. I pulled it open. My grandmother's pearl drop earrings, which I'd left in the small crystal dish the night before, were gone. The dish itself was pushed back at an odd angle. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. This wasn't carelessness. This was a violation. Maria had been with us for 8 months. She came with stellar references from a family in the Hamptons, efficient, quiet, almost invisible. Until recently, last week, I'd caught her staring at David a beat too long as he poured his morning coffee. Then there were the little things, my favorite jade hair clip disappearing and reappearing days later in a different spot, the subtle rearrangement of the cosmetics on my vanity. I dismissed it as paranoia, the lingering unease from my recent struggles. Not anymore. I found my phone and called David at his office. It went to voicemail. I texted, need to talk. Urgent about Maria. He called back 10 minutes later, his voice the calm, measured baritone I used to find soothing. Now it just felt distant. Hannah, what's going on? I'm in back-to-backs until noon, Maria. I said, why voice harder than I intended? She deliberately ruined my La Perla pajamas, threw them in the hamper covered in stains. And she's been in our bedside tables. My grandmother's pearls are missing. There was a pause on the line, just a fraction of a second too long. Are you sure? The pearls might be in your jewelry box. And the silk, maybe it was an accident. Red wine can really IT wasn't an accident, David. I cut in, gripping the phone tighter. The stains are right on the front, like someone threw a glass at them. And the drawer was searched. I can tell. She's been off lately. I want to let her go. Today. Another pause. I could hear the faint clack of a keyboard in the background. Hannah, sweetheart, I know you've been under a lot of stress since. Everything. Maybe you're misinterpreting things. Maria's references were impeccable. Firing her over a stained garment seems extreme. What if it was just a mistake? His tone was placating, the one he used when he thought I was being emotional. It ignited a spark of anger. It's not about the garment, David. It's about theft and a complete disrespect for boundaries. I don't feel comfortable with her in my home. Our home. I emphasized the last words. He sighed, the sound weary. Look, I can't deal with this right now. I have the Henderson merger closing this afternoon, and this is a huge headache. Can it wait until tonight? We'll talk then. No, IT can't wait. I'm going to handle it. I just wanted you to know, Hannah, don't be rash. Let's just give her a warning. See if the pearls turn up. She's a big help, and finding someone new is a nightmare. His resistance was a brick wall. Why was he defending her? A sick, slithering thought entered my mind, fed by that too long look I'd witnessed. I pushed it down, I'm not asking for permission, David. I'm telling you. I'm letting her go. My voice trembled slightly, but the resolve held. Fine. He said, the word sharp, do what you want, but handle it yourself. I don't have the bandwidth. And for God's sake, be civil. We don't need a wrongful termination lawsuit on top of everything else. The line went dead. I stood in the sunlit bedroom, the silence suddenly loud and accusing. Handle it yourself. I'd been handling myself for years before David Winslow walked into my life at that charity gala that all charm and confident smiles. But lately, IT felt like I was handling fragments, trying to piece together a picture that kept shifting. I found Maria in the kitchen, polishing silver flatware that was already gleaming. She was a handsome woman in her late 40s, with dark hair pulled into a severe bun and eyes that missed nothing. Maria, we need to talk. Please sit down. She didn't look surprised. She laid down the polishing cloth with deliberate care and sat at the breakfast nook, her back ramrod straight. Yes, everything Mrs. Winslow, no, it's not. I remained standing, needing the slight advantage of height. This morning I found my favorite silk pajamas which were clean and stored in my armoire, ruined in the laundry hamper, stained beyond repair. I also found my bedside drawer had been disturbed, and a pair of heirloom pearl earrings are missing. Maria's face remained a polite mask. I'm sorry about the pajamas. I must have mistaken them for regular laundry. As for the pearls, I haven't seen them. Perhaps they are misplaced. They weren't misplaced. They were in the crystal dish last night. And no one mistakes tissue-wrapped silk for regular laundry. I kept my gaze steady. Your work has been satisfactory until recently, but this, along with a few other inconsistencies, means we've decided to terminate your employment. Effective immediately. There it was, a flicker in her dark eyes. Not shock, not anger. Something colder. Calculation, Mr. Winslow agrees with this. She asked, her voice smooth, this is my decision. I'll provide you with a severance of 2 weeks' pay, and of course, a reference based on your earlier months here. But I'd like you to pack your things and leave by the end of the day. She didn't plead, didn't deny. She just nodded slowly, that strange look still in her eyes that I see. Well, I'll gather my belongings. But before I go to Mrs. Winslow, she leaned forward, slightly, a piece of advice. Look carefully at the things closest to you. Sometimes the real stain isn't on the silk. A chill traced my spine. What is that supposed to mean? She stood up, a small, humorless smile touching her lips. Just that things aren't always as clean as they appear, even in a home like this. She walked out of the kitchen, her steps silent on the polished hardwood. I stood there, shaking. Her words hung in the air, more unsettling than any outright accusation. I pushed the feeling aside, attributing it to the venom of a dismissed employee. I had a right to feel safe in my own home. I spent the next hour in our home office writing the severance check and a bland, neutral letter of reference. I heard the soft sounds of Maria moving around in her small attached quarters. When I went to the foyer later, her single suitcase was by the door. She wore her coat, looking out of place in the grand marble entryway here. I said, handing her the envelope, the check, and the letter. She took it, her eyes meeting mine. That unsettling intensity was back. Thank you. I hope you find what you're looking for, Mrs. Winslow. Truly. She picked up her suitcase and opened the front door. Just before she stepped out into the crisp New York afternoon, she turned her head. And you might want to check your security system logs. For your own peace of mind, the cameras see things even late at night. Then she was gone, pulling the heavy door shut behind her with a soft, final click. The apartment felt enormous and hollow. I leaned against the door, why breath coming short. Cameras, late at night. Was it just a parting shot, an attempt to unnerve me? Or was it something more? I walked to the den where the small monitor for our security system was housed. My fingers hesitated over the keyboard. David had insisted on the top-of-the-line system after a string of burglaries in the building. He'd set it up, knew the passwords. I rarely looked at it. I navigated to the playback menu, why heart thumping? I selected the kitchen camera feed from last night. The timestamp scrolled by in fast forward to the empty moonlit room with the glow of the Sub-Zero refrigerator. Then AT 11:47 p.m. Figures entered the frame. I hit play. It was David. He was still in his work slacks and a white undershirt holding a glass of amber liquid. He looked tired. A moment later, Maria entered. She wasn't in her uniform, but in a simple dark robe. They didn't turn on the main light, just the small under-cabinet LEDs, casting their faces in eerie shadow. They spoke in low voices, the microphone picking up only murmurs. But their body language screamed intimacy. David wasn't standing like an employer. He was leaning against the center island, his posture relaxed. Maria stood close, too close. She said something, and he shook his head, running a hand through his hair in a gesture of frustration I knew well. Then she reached out and placed her hand on his arm, a comforting, familiar touch. He didn't pull away. He looked up at her, said something more emphatically. I saw his lips form the words, not yet. Or, be patient. I couldn't be sure. Maria nodded slowly, then her hand slid off his arm. She turned and left the kitchen. David stood there for a long moment, staring into his drink before draining it and following her out. The feed returned to an empty kitchen. I stumbled back from the monitor, hand pressed to my mouth. The cold, slithering thought was back, now grown into a serpent coiling around my heart. Not yet. Be patient. Patience for what? This wasn't just a fired maid with a grudge. Maria had been in my bedroom, going through my things, sending me a message with my ruined silk. And David knew. He defended her. He'd met with her in the dead of night. I thought of the last 6 months. David's increased late nights at the office. His growing impatience with my grief, wide-up moods, as he called them. The way he'd begun to suggest I see a new specialist for my lingering fatigue and headaches, just to rule everything out, Hannah. For my peace of mind, I walked back to the bedroom, why legs unsteady. The morning sun, now, felt harsh, exposing everything. I opened my bedside drawer again. The empty crystal dish winked mockingly. What else had Maria seen? What had she taken, or perhaps, what had she planted? A new, more primal fear cut through the shock. If David and Maria were involved, and Maria was willing to vandalize my property and steal from me, what else were they capable of? Her final words echoed. Look carefully at the things closest to you. The closest thing to me was the man sleeping next to me every night. I needed to think, be smart. I couldn't confront David, not without more. Anger and betrayal warred with a survival instinct I didn't know I still possessed. I went to my closet and pulled out a small, locked fireproof box where I kept my passport and a few pieces of jewelry for my mother. I opened it. Everything seemed in order. Then I saw it, tucked beneath a stack of old letters, a small, black, rectangular object. A digital voice recorder. It wasn't mine. My blood ran cold. I picked it up with trembling fingers. It was sleek, professional. I pressed the play button. Static, then voices filled the quiet closet. A man's voice, low and concerned. The progression is subtle. Fatigue, confusion, headaches. It can look like stress, depression, even early onset. No one would question IT. IT was a voice I didn't recognize. Then David's voice, clear as day, somber. And the final outcome, the first voice again. With the dosage, we discussed, complete neurological failure. It would appear to be a rapid, aggressive form of degenerative disease. Tragic, but not suspicious. A long pause. Then David, his voice thick with what sounded like grief. I just can't watch her suffer like this anymore, doctor. If this is the only merciful way, IT is. The medication will be in her vitamins. I'll handle the prescriptions. You just need to be patient, and be the devoted, grieving husband. The insurance will see it that way too. Click. The recording ended. The room tilted. I sank to the floor of the closet, the recorder clattering for my numb fingers. The words echoed in the silent, perfumed dark. Neurological failure. Medication in her vitamins. The devoted, grieving husband. Insurance. It wasn't an affair. It was a death sentence. And the man who had signed it was the man who had promised to love and cherish me that I end sickness and in health. The sound of my own heartbeat thundered in my ears, a frantic drum against the silence of the closet. The black plastic of the recorder was cool against my palm where I'd snatched it back up. I stared at IT. AS, if the tiny device might morph into something else, something that made sense. But it didn't. The voices David's and that unfamiliar clinical tenor played on a loop in my head. Neurological failure. Medication in her vitamins. The devoted, grieving husband. I couldn't breathe. The walls of the walk-in closet, lined with my clothes and handbags, felt like they were pressing in. This was my sanctuary, and it had been violated twice over. First by Maria's prying hands, then by this. This weapon. I fumbled with the recorder, Y fingers slick with cold sweat. I rewound and pressed play again, lowering the volume, straining to hear every inflection. The progression is subtle. Fatigue, confusion, headaches. It can look like stress, depression, even early onset. No one would question it. The doctor. Evans, he had to be sounded, so reasonable. Like he was discussing a treatment plan, not a murder. And the final outcome, David's voice. It was the voice he used at charity galas when discussing a donor's terminal illness. Sober, respectful, full of performative sorrow. I'd always found it dignified. Now it made my stomach heave. With the dosage, we discussed, complete neurological failure. It would appear to be a rapid, aggressive form of degenerative disease. Tragic, but not suspicious. A cold, detached assessment of my annihilation. Then David's coup de grace. I just can't watch her suffer like this anymore. Doctor, if this is the only merciful way, suffer. What suffering? The fatigue after the miscarriage. The grief he kept telling me I needed to move past. The headaches he'd been so insistently concerned about. Had he been orchestrating those too? Planting the seeds of my illness. In everyone's mind, including my OWN.IT is. The medication will be in her vitamins. I'll handle the prescriptions. You just need to be patient, and be the devoted, grieving husband. The insurance will see it that way too. Insurance, the word was a splash of ice water. Of course. The increased policy he'd talked about 6 months ago. Just prudent, Hannah. With the market volatility, we need to secure our future, his future, a future funded by my death. A raw, soundless gasp finally tore from my throat. I doubled over, dry heaves racking my body. The taste of betrayal was copper and bile. This wasn't a crime of passion. This was a clinical, financial transaction. And David was the project manager. I had to get out of the closet. I had to think. I shoved the recorder deep into the pocket of my leggings, the weight of it burning against my thigh. I stood up, my legs trembling, and forced myself to take slow, deliberate breaths. In, out. Don't fall apart. Not now. He can't know you know. The first rule, act normal. The second, secure the evidence. The third, find out who Dr. Evans was. I walked back into the bedroom. The sun was higher now, cheerful and bright, mocking the horror film unfolding in my life. I looked at the BED, AT David sighed, the bedside table drawer, the vitamins. For months, David had been the one to fill our weekly pill organizers, a sweet, doting gesture, or so I'd thought. He took a multivitamin and a fish oil capsule. I took a prenatal, a futile habit I couldn't break. Vitamin D, and the new stress support. Blend he'd brought home after a visit to a new concierge, Doctor. Evans comes highly recommended. He focuses on holistic preventative care. He thinks this might help with your low energy. I'd taken them grateful for his concern. Now I stared at the small clear compartment for today's pills. My hand shook as I reached for it. I didn't take them out. Instead, I took a tissue from the box on my vanity, opened the organizer, and carefully tipped the contents of my Wednesday PM slot onto the tissue. 3 capsules. The oblong prenatal, the small white vitamin D, and the slightly larger beige stress support. Capsule. I folded the tissue around them and hid it in the very back of my underwear drawer. I would need to get them tested, but first I needed to replace them so he wouldn't suspect. I went to the kitchen, why heart hammering against my ribs. I found the bottle of the stress support vitamins in the cabinet. The label was professional, listing herbs like rhodiola and ashwagandha. I opened it, poured a few into my hand, and selected one that looked identical to the one I'd taken. I refilled my pill organizer slot, why movements jerky, Hannah. I jumped, the bottle, slipping from my hand and clattering onto the quartz countertop. David stood in the doorway to the kitchen, his suit jacket slung over his arm, his tie loosened. He looked every inch the handsome, weary finance executive. David, you're home early. My voice sounded shrill, alien. The Henderson closing got pushed to tomorrow. Thought I'd sneak out. He walked toward me, his eyes scanning my face. You okay? You look pale. He's checking his patient. The thought was so cleared. Oval. It almost broke my composure. Just a headache, I said, forcing a weak smile. I bent to pick up the vitamin bottle, hoping he wouldn't see the tremor in my hands. Forgot to take my vitamins this morning. Trying to get back on track. He was right in front of me now. He reached out and cupped my cheek. His hand was warm. I had to fight the instinct to flinch, recoil from the touch of my executioner. You have to be consistent with them, sweetheart. Dr. Evans said they take time to build up in your system. His thumb stroked my cheekbone. How did it go with Maria? The question was casual, but his eyes were watchful. Testing me. I made myself lean into his touch for a second before pulling away, turning to put the vitamin bottle back in the cabinet. It was fine. Uncomfortable, but fine. I gave her 2 weeks severance and a neutral reference. She left about an hour GO drama. He moved to the fridge and pulled out a bottle of sparkling water, a little. She was cryptic. Said some strange things about things not being as they seem. I watched him closely, a barely perceptible tightening around his eyes. He took a slow sip of water. Disgruntled employees say all sorts of things, trying to get under your skin. You did the right thing. He came back over and wrapped his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder. I stiffened, every muscle locking. This is for the best. Now we can find someone who really respects you, respects us. I stood frozen in his embrace, the recorder a lead weight in my pocket. His body felt like a cage. The devoted husband, playing his part perfectly. Yeah, I managed to whisper, for the best. He kissed my temple, I'm gonna hop in the shower. Why don't you rest? You really do look tired. Maybe order in from that Italian place you like tonight. We can just relax, sure. That sounds good. He released me and headed for the bedroom. The moment he was out of sight, I sagged against the counter. My breath coming in short, sharp gasps. The performance had exhausted me. How long could I keep this up? Days, weeks, while he steadily poisoned me. I waited until I heard the shower running. Then I grabbed my laptop from the den and took it to the small, rarely used sitting room at the back of the apartment. I closed the door. My first search, Dr. Evans Concierge Medicine, New York. Pages of results came up. I refined it. Dr. Evans Neurologist, New York. Bingo. Dr. Robert Evans, MD. A sleek website for a private practice on the Upper East Side, specializing in cognitive neurology. and neurodegenerative disorders. Discrete. Personalized care. Neurodegenerative disorders. The phrase from the recording echoed. Rapid. Aggressive form of degenerative disease. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely type. I navigated to the about page. A photo of a man in his late 50s, silver-haired with a kind, intelligent face and warm eyes. He looked like someone you'd trust with your life, with your death. I searched his name alongside lawsuit, malpractice, investigation. A few buried articles from medical review boards showed up. 2 cases settled out of court. Details were sparse, but phrases like unexpected decline and disputed treatment protocol appeared. Nothing that would raise a major red flag for the average person. But for me, IT was a flashing neon sign. This was the man who was going to sign my death certificate, a respected doctor with a slightly tarnished but well-buried history. I needed to see him. I needed to look him in the eye. But I couldn't just make an appointment as Hannah Winslow. An idea, desperate and half-formed, began to take shape. I could use a headache, a new patient headache. I picked up my cell phone, fingers hovering over the keypad. I took another steadying breath, willing my voice into something calm and slightly pained. I dialed the number on his website. A polite, efficient receptionist answered, doctor. Evans' office. How may I help you? Hi, yes. I said, pitching my voice a little higher. Freilier. I'm hoping to schedule a new patient consultation with Dr. Evans. I've been having these terrible, persistent headaches. My regular GP is stumped, and a friend recommended Dr. Evans highly. I'm sorry to hear that. Dr. Evans does specialize in complex neurological presentations. Let me check his availability for new patients. I heard the clicking of a keyboard. He has an opening next Tuesday at 3 p.m. Will that work? Tuesday. For days away. Could I pretend for 4 more days? I had to. That would be perfect. Thank you. Name, please. I hesitated for a split second. Eleanor Shaw. My mother's maiden name and first name. A ghost from a safer past. I gave her a fake phone number and my email. She took the details and ended the call. I sat back at the laptop glowing in the dim room. I had a name. I had an appointment. And I had the poisonous pills in my underwear drawer. The shower stopped down the hall. I quickly closed the browser and shut the laptop. I needed to get my story straight for tonight. The devoted wife, grateful for her caring husband. I stood up and went to the mirror above the fireplace. The woman staring back was pale, her eyes wide with a terror she couldn't show. You can do this. I whispered to her reflection. For now, you are Eleanor Shaw. And Eleanor Shaw is going to find out exactly what game Dr. Evans is playing. I practiced a smile. It looked ghastly. When I walked back into the kitchen to pretend to look at menus, David was there dressed in casual pants and a sweater his hair damp. He smiled at me, that easy, charming smile that had once made my knees weak, feeling any better. He asked, his voice dripping with concern, little. I said, returning his smile with one of my own. It felt like cracking ice on my face. Just hungry, did I think. Let's get that carbonara. Perfect. He reached out and squeezed my hand. I'm just glad you're taking care of yourself. His touch made my skin crawl, but I didn't pull away. I squeezed back, looking into the eyes of the man who was patiently, devotedly, waiting for me to die. Me too, David. I said softly, the perfect picture of a trusting wife. Me too. The next 4 days were an exercise in high-wire theater without a net. Every morning, I awoke to the sight of David's sleeping face on the pillow beside me, and a fresh wave of terror-soaked nausea. The pills. I had to take them. If I stopped, he'd know. I developed a routine. I'd wait until he was in the shower, then take my handful of vitamins from the organizer. The prenatal, the vitamin D, and the beige one, the Trojan horse. I'd put them all in my mouth, take a swig of water, and pretend to swallow. The moment I was alone, that I'd spit them into a tissue and flush them. It was a disgusting, nerve-wracking ritual that left my heart pounding. I'd replaced the suspect capsule with a look-alike from the bottle, but I needed to know what was in the original. On Wednesday, under the guise of shopping and a museum visit, I took a crosstown bus to a lab in Queens I'd found online. The discreet, no questions asked place that promised confidentiality for personal wellness checks. I handed over the tissue-wrapped capsule as Eleanor Shaw, paid in cash and was told results would take 48 hours. The clock was ticking. Meanwhile, I played my part. I leaned into the symptoms David and Dr. Evans expected. At dinner Wednesday night, I let my fork clatter slightly against my plate. Whoops, I said, forcing a shaky laugh. Butterfingers. David looked up from his steak, his gaze sharp. That's the second time tonight. You okay, just tired? I murmured, rubbing my temple. This headache just won't quit. It's like a constant pressure behind my eyes. He reached across the table, his expression the epitome of concerned solicitude. Maybe you should call Dr. Evans' office. See if he can move your appointment up. My skin crawled. Why appointment? Oh, with Dr. Brennan. I named my actual, longtime GP. No, honey. He said patiently, AS, if speaking to a child, with Dr. Evans, the neurologist. You remember we talked about it. For the headaches and the forgetfulness. I blinked, letting my eyes go slightly unfocused. Did we? I'm sorry everything's just fuzzy today. His smile was thin, satisfied that it's okay. Don't worry about it. I'll handle it. He patted my hand. You just focus on feeling better. The condescension was a new weapon. He was already writing the narrative of my decline. On Thursday, I pretended to get lost. I texted him from a coffee shop 3 blocks from our apartment. David, I'm so embarrassed. I went out for a walk, and I can't remember which way is home. Everything looks the same. Can you talk me back? The 3 dots appeared immediately. Then his call, Hannah. Where exactly are you? His voice was a blend of concern and a barely concealed edge. I'm at a coffee shop. The Daily Grind. I think the sign says that's 2 blocks south of us. Stay right there. Don't move. I'm coming to get you. He arrived in 7 minutes, striding into the cafe with the air of a rescuer. He wrapped a protective arm around me, nodding apologetically to the barista, as if to say, you see what I have to deal with, I buried my face in his chest, playing the part of the confused, frightened wife. Let's get you home. He murmured into my hair. His grip was firm, almost possessive. That night, he suggested we watch a movie, a romantic comedy we'd seen a dozen times. Halfway through, I gasped, David, what's the name of the actress? The blonde one. I can see her face, but her name. It's gone. He paused the film, turning to me with a look of profound, tragic sympathy. Julia Roberts, Hannah. It's Julia Roberts. He took my hand, it's just the stress, sweetheart. And the headaches. Once Dr. Evans gets you on the right treatment plan, this will all get better. He was laying the groundwork, brick by emotional brick. And I was handing him the mortar. Friday brought the lab results. I retrieved them from a digital Dropbox. My hands trembling as I opened the PDF on a library computer. The language was clinical, but the conclusion was stark. The capsule contained a complex blend of herbal supplements and a significant concentrated dose of a synthetic compound called MP2P. A quick terrified Google search on my phone made my blood run cold. MP2P was a neurotoxin, notorious. It was the compound that had accidentally induced permanent Parkinson's-like symptoms in a group of drug users in the 1980s. In controlled cumulative doses, IT would cause progressive irreversible damage to the substantia nigra region of the brain. Symptoms: tremors, rigidity, cognitive fog, depression, fatigue. A rapid, aggressive form of degenerative disease. He wasn't just making me sick. He was methodically, chemically dismantling my brain. I sat in the silent library to the hum of the computers, a distant buzz. The reality was no longer a terrifying suspicion. It was a chemical formula on a page. I wanted to scream, Tio run to the police. But what did I have? A recording from an unknown source I couldn't legally explain, and a lab test for a pill I couldn't prove David gave me. Maria was gone, a disgruntled ex-employee. I was a confused, forgetful woman with a history of emotional distress. David Winslow was a pillar of the community, a wealthy financier with impeccable connections. And Dr. Evans was a respected physician. I was in a maze with the walls closing in, and the only way out was to go deeper. Saturday arrived the day before my appointment as Eleanor Shaw. The tension in the apartment was a living thing. David was being excruciatingly attentive, which was its own form of torture. He made me tea, suggested naps, and watched me with the focused intensity of a scientist observing an experiment. In the afternoon, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. A text appeared. The pills are poison. Stop taking them. You need more than a doctor. You need proof. Maria. My heart hammered against my ribs. She knew, and she was still watching. Was this a lifeline or another layer of the trap? I deleted the message immediately. Why pulse roaring in my ears? I didn't reply. I couldn't trust her, but her warning was a grim confirmation. I was already not taking them, but the fact that she knew where they would change things. She had access to information. She was a player, not just a scorned mistress. I needed an ally, but it couldn't be her. Not yet. Sunday night, we got ready for bed. David brought me my nightly glass of water and my pill organizer. Don't forget these. He said softly, placing them on my nightstand. The beige capsule sat there, innocent and deadly. Thank you. I whispered, forcing a grateful smile. I took the organizer, popped the pills into my mouth, and took a large gulp of water. I held the water in my mouth, the capsules dissolving slightly on my tongue, the bitter taste of the MP-laden one making me want to gag. I made a show of swallowing, then smiled at him. All done. He kissed my forehead. Good girl. The moment he left for the bathroom, I rushed to the sink in the kitchenette down the hall and spat the viscous, bitter slurry into the disposal, rinsing my mouth over and over until the taste was gone. I leaned against the counter, trembling. The charade was eating me alive. Monday morning, the day of my appointment, dawned gray and drizzly. I dressed carefully as Eleanor Shaw. Understated, expensive, but not flashy, a tailored taupe pantsuit, low heels, a silk scarf. I looked like a wealthy, anxious Upper East Side woman with a mysterious ailment. It wasn't a stretch. Off to the museum. David asked, kissing my cheek as he headed for the door, his briefcase in hand, and some errands. I said, keeping my voice light, maybe a long lunch with Claire. Claire was a real friend, when I hadn't spoken to in weeks. A safe alibi. Have fun. Don't overdo it. His concern was a blanket, smothering. The offices of Dr. Robert Evans were in a sleek, modern building off Park Avenue. The waiting room was serene, all muted grays and soft lighting, with abstract art on the walls. It smelled of money and antiseptic. I gave the name, Eleanor Shaw, to the elegant receptionist and took a seat, why palm slick. A few minutes later, the nurse called me back. She took my blood pressure, elevated, and weight, making polite chit-chat. Then she led me to a consultation room. It was comfortably appointed, but the diplomas from Johns Hopkins and Harvard on the wall felt less like testaments to skill and more like trophies in a hunter's den. I waited for 10 agonizing minutes. Then the door opened, and Dr. Robert Evans walked in. He was more imposing in person than in his photo. Tall, with a reassuring, avuncular manner. His smile was warm, his eyes crinkling at the corners. He looked like everyone's ideal grandfather, physician, MS. Shaw, he said, extending a hand. His grip was firm. Dry that I'm Dr. Evans. I understand you've been having some troubling headaches. Yes. I said, willing my voice not to shake. I launched into the rehearsed symptoms. Pressure, blurry vision, episodes of confusion, terrible fatigue. I watched him closely as I spoke. He listened intently, nodding, taking notes on a tablet. And how long has this been going on? He asked, his tone gentle, a few months. I said, it's been getting progressively worse. My husband is very worried. I let a little tremor enter my voice. At the mention of a husband, something flickered in his eyes. A spark of recognition. Or just professional interest. It's good you have support. This type of presentation can be very frightening. Have you seen any other doctors? I shook my head. No. A friend recommended you. She said you were the best for complex neurological issues. He gave a modest, practice smile. Well, that we certainly try. What you're describing could be a number of things, severe migraines, a chronic stress condition, or he paused, his expression turning graver. It could be something we need to look at more closely. The cognitive symptoms you mention are particularly concerning. He proceeded with a standard neurological exam. Follow the light, touch your nose, walk heel to toe. I pretended subtle clumsiness. He frowned thoughtfully. MS. Shaw, given your symptoms, I'd like to run some tests. An MRI would give us a good baseline. And I'd like to do some blood work, check for biomarkers that might indicate. Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. He began typing on his tablet. I'll have my nurse schedule them. In the meantime, he looked up at me, his eyes kind and deadly serious. I'm going to start you on a regimen. A combination of supplements to support neurological health and a mild medication to address the inflammation that might be causing these headaches. It's very important you take them exactly as prescribed. Consistency is key. My mouth went dry. This was it. The script, of course, doctor. Anything. He printed out a prescription and handed it to me. It was for a drug called Neurocom, along with a list of supplements. I recognized none of the names, but I knew the game. The real poison would be in whatever he provided directly, not in a pharmacy-filled prescription. Why nurse will give you a starter pack of the supplements today. He said, AS, if reading my mind, we use a specialized compounding pharmacy for optimal bioavailability. Now, IS, there's someone who can help you manage this. Your husband, perhaps. The question was casual, but loaded. He was probing for my devoted counterpart. He travels a lot for work. I said, looking down at my hands. But he tries. He's been so worried. Dr. Evans nodded sympathetically. It's hard on the caregivers, too. Don't hesitate to have him call the office if he has any questions. We find a team approach is best for these long-term situations. Long-term, the euphemism hung in the air. The nurse gave me a small, elegant paper bag containing bottles of supplements. I thanked her. Why fingers numb around the handles? Out on the rainy street, I hailed a cab. Inside, I opened the bag. There, among bottles of B vitamins and magnesium, was a small, unmarked bottle of beige capsules, identical to the one in my nightstand. I had just met the man who was helping my husband murder me, and he had looked me in the eye, with profound compassion, and given me the next dose of my own destruction. The cab pulled up to my building. I paid and stepped out into the drizzle, the paper bag feeling like it contained a live bomb. As I walked through the gleaming lobby, my phone vibrated. Another unknown number. He gave you the pills, didn't he? Don't take them. And check your husband's study. The bottom drawer of the filing cabinet, behind the tax returns. You're not crazy. I stared at the message, the rain misting the screen. Maria was guiding me. But to what? A truth I could use. Or a precipice. I had proof now. He had met the enemy. And I had a choice. Walk into my apartment and continue the performance, or start digging in the one place David thought was his alone. The study was his sanctum. He'd kill me if he caught me in there. But I thought with a sudden cold clarity, he was planning to do that anyway. I took a deep breath, straightened my scarf, and walked towards the elevator. The performance wasn't over, but during the next act, Eleanor Shaw needed to do some reconnaissance. The paper bag from Dr. Evans' office felt like it was radiating a malevolent heat. I entered the apartment, why heart, a frantic bird, trapped in my ribcage. Silence. David wouldn't be home for hours. The emptiness that usually a reprieve that now felt charged with 1,000 watching eyes. Maria's text had turned the familiar space into a minefield. The bottom drawer of the filing cabinet behind the tax returns. David's study was off limits. It had been an unspoken rule from the beginning of our marriage why cave. He'd called it, with a charming, self-deprecating smile, that a man needs a space for his mess. I'd respected it, even found it endearing. Now that the closed mahogany door at the end of the hall looked like the entrance to a tomb. First things first, I went to our bedroom and emptied the paper bag onto my vanity. I carefully photographed each bottle, the prescription, the unmarked bottle of beige capsules. I unscrewed the cap of the unmarked bottle and tipped one out. It was indistinguishable from the one I'd had tested. Twins of death. I replaced it, then hid the entire bag in the back of my closet behind a stack of winter sweaters. I kept one of the beige capsules, wrapping it in tissue and tucking it into the pocket of my pantsuit. Then I just stood there, staring at the closed bedroom door. The silence of the apartment pressed in. To go into the study was to cross a line from which there was no return. If I found nothing, I'd be left with only my paranoia. If I found something, the reality might be more than I could bear. Maria's words echoed. You're not crazy. I needed not to be crazy. I needed proof that existed outside of my own spiraling mind and a single, deniable recording. I walked down the hall, why footsteps silent on the plush runner. I paused outside the study, door, listening. Nothing, of course. I turned the knob. It was unlocked. He'd grown that complacent. The room smelled of him. Sandalwood cologne, old leather, and the faint, acrid scent of cigar smoke he sometimes indulged in. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves held volumes on finance and history interspersed with tasteful art objects. His massive, antique partner's desk dominated the room, its surface unnaturally tidy. The filing cabinet was a sleek, two-drawer model in gunmetal gray, tucked beside the desk. I crossed the room, my senses screaming. I pulled open the bottom drawer. It was heavy, full of hanging folders, meticulously labeled. Tax returns, 2025. Tax returns, 2024. I pulled the 2024 folder out. Behind it was another, slimmer folder. No label. My hands were shaking so badly the papers rattled. I lifted the unmarked folder out and laid it on the desk. The first document was a life insurance policy. My life insurance policy. The face amount made me gasp. $10 million. Double what he'd told me. And the beneficiary was not a trust, not a shared account. It was solely David Arthur Winslow. A policy taken out 9 months ago, shortly after the miscarriage. The application included my medical history, citing chronic fatigue syndrome, and exploratory tests for cognitive concerns. Under the care of Dr. Robert Evans. Dr. Evans had signed as the attending physician. My signature was on the form, flawless forgery, or one signed by me in a stack of papers he'd called post-miscarriage financial updates. Beneath that was a legal document, a durable power of attorney for healthcare. It granted David full authority to make all medical decisions for me if I were deemed incapacitated. It cited Dr. Evans as the primary physician empowered to make that determination of incapacity. My signature was there, too, dated the same week as the insurance policy. I felt the room tilt. These weren't just plans, they were legal instruments. He wasn't just waiting for me to die. He was constructing a cage where he could hasten the process with full legal and medical authority. The next page was a spreadsheet, printed out. Columns with dates, dosage levels in milligrams, and corresponding, symptom progression. Headache severity, 1 to 10. Cognitive lapses noted. Fatigue level. It was a log. A fucking log of my poisoning. The entries went back 3 months. I saw my own episodes. Documented in his cold, precise shorthand. September 12th. Left stove on. September 28th. Could not recall neighbor's name. October 5th. Spilled red wine at fundraiser, uncharacteristic. He was tracking the efficacy of his crime. The final item was a single sheet of paper, printed email. From david.winslow@blackstonecapital.com to robert.evans@evanceneuro.com. Date, October 28.2025. Subject, timeline, Robert. Based on the current progression and her increased confusion this week. See log. Did I believe we can accelerate phase 2? The MRI you scheduled for, Eleanor Shaw, is a good cover. Can we move the dosage increase to the new supplement batch you're preparing? Target window for a medical crisis/incapacitating event should be before the Christmas holidays. Liquidity events at the fund will be complete by then, and it will look natural for us to be away, seeking specialized care. I finalized the POA, and the insurance is in place. Let's discuss after her Tuesday appointment. D. The email was like a physical blow to my sternum. I couldn't breathe. Target window. Before the Christmas holidays, 0.6 weeks. They were planning to completely incapacitate me in 6 weeks. Away, seeking specialized care. A private clinic somewhere, where he and Dr. Evans could finish the job in isolation. The clinical detachment of it was the most monstrous part. This was a merger timeline, a liquidation event. I heard a key scrape in the front door lock. Panic, pure, and electric, shot through me. I fumbled the papers, Y fingers clumsy with terror. I shoved the email and the spreadsheet back into the folder. The insurance policy and the POA were larger, clumsier. The front door swung open. Hannah. I'm home. David's voice, calling from the foyer. He was early. So much earlier. I crammed the folder back into the filing cabinet behind the tax returns, slammed the drawer shut, and spun around. There was no time to get out. I dropped into David's leather desk chair, swiveling it to face the door just as he appeared in the doorway. He stopped, surprised. Hey, what are you doing in here? My mind blanked for a split second. Then I forced a weary, confused smile to the one I'd been practicing today. I'm not sure. I said, my voice deliberately faint. I rubbed my temples that I came in looking for a book, I think. One of my art books. And then I just sat down. I felt dizzy. Everything's foggy. His surprise melted into that familiar to concerned expression. He walked in, placing a hand on my forehead, you're a little warm. Did you take your pills today? I think so. I murmured, letting my eyes drift around the room as if disoriented. I can't really remember. His gaze flicked to the filing cabinet. Had I closed it all the way? I couldn't look. I kept my eyes on him, wide and slightly unfocused. Let's get you to bed, he said, his voice soothing. He helped me up, his arm strong around my waist. He was leading me out, but I felt his attention was partly still in the room behind us, I'm sorry. I whispered, your office. I didn't mean to intrude. It's okay, sweetheart. He said, guiding me down the hall, you're not well. You need to rest. His tone was gentle, but there was a new watchfulness in it, a slight tension in the arm holding me. He tucked me into bed, drawing the shades, I've got a conference called. But I'll be in the den. You sleep. He kissed my forehead, his lips cool, I'll check on you later. He left, pulling the bedroom door, almost closed. I lay perfectly still, listening. I heard his footsteps go toward the den, then pause. A moment of silence. Then the footsteps returned, going past the bedroom, back down the hall, toward the study. My blood turned to ice. He was checking. I counted to 30, then slipped out of bed and crept to the door, opening it a crack. I could see down the hall to the open study door. David was standing by the filing cabinet, his back to me. He pulled open the bottom drawer. He lifted the tax return folder. I saw his shoulders stiffen. He looked at the unmarked folder behind it. He didn't pull it out, but he shifted it slightly, checking if it had been disturbed. He stood there for a long minute, frozen. Then he slowly closed the drawer. He didn't turn around. He just stood, staring at the cabinet. He knew someone had been in there. He might not be sure it was me. I end my state. I was a chaotic variable, but the sanctum had been breached. He turned suddenly and strode out of the study, his face a careful mask. I pulled the bedroom door shut and scrambled back into bed, pulling the covers up to my chin, feigning sleep. I heard him pause outside my door. I could feel his gaze through the wood. Then his footsteps retreated to the den. The performance had just entered a new, more dangerous act. He was suspicious. The timeline was accelerated, and I had evidence, but it was trapped in that cabinet. I needed to get it out. I needed to make copies. I needed a plan that wasn't just reactive survival. My phone, lying silent on the nightstand, was my only potential weapon. I thought of Maria's texts, an enemy of my enemy, or a co-conspirator having second thoughts. Later that evening, David was excessively gentle. Over a quiet dinner, he said, I've been thinking. You seem more confused lately. Those episodes. Maybe we should consider getting you more focused help. Dr. Evans mentioned a wonderful residential program in Switzerland, just for a few weeks, for observation and intensive treatment. The Swiss clinic. The away. Destination. I put down my fork, letting it clatter slightly away. But the holidays. Your health is the most important thing. He said, reaching across to hold my hand. We can have our own quiet celebration when you're better. The caring murderer, offering me a one-way ticket. I looked down at our joined hands, Can I think about it? It scares me. His grip tightened just a fraction, of course, sweetheart. But don't think too long. We don't want this to progress. The threat was velvet-wrapped. That night, once his breathing evened out into sleep, I took my phone into the bathroom. Locking the door, I stared at the last unknown number. I had to risk it. I typed a reply. I found the folder. Insurance. POA. A log. An email about a timeline. He's suspicious now. I need to get the originals. I need help. I hit send, why hard hammering. I waited, staring at the screen in the dim glow of the nightlight. 5 minutes passed. 10. Just as I was about to give up, the screen lit up. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. He has a lunch at the grill that will run long. Backup is key. Photograph everything. Do not take originals yet. He will notice. There is a key in the blue Chinese vase on the bookshelf. It's for a storage unit. Unit #314. Manhattan Mini Storage on 47th. Go there after you copy everything. Do not be followed. A storage unit. What was in it? More evidence. A trap. But the instructions were precise. She knew his schedule. She knew about the key. She was deep inside his world. I had no choice. I was out of my depth, playing a game against a man who had planned my death like a corporate takeover. Maria, for whatever her motives, was the only one offering a map. I deleted the message, thread, flushed the toilet for cover, and slipped back into bed beside the man who dreamed of my $10 million demise. I stared at the ceiling, to the digital clock, numbers bleeding red into the dark. Tomorrow, Eleanor Shaw would make copies, and then she would visit a storage locker, hoping to find a weapon, and not her own coffin. Sleep was impossible. I lay rigid beside David, The digital clocks, red, glow, charting the slow death of the night. Every rustle of sheets, every sigh from him, felt like a prelude to discovery. The evidence in the filing cabinet was a live wire in the next room, humming with lethal voltage. Maria's text was a lifeline thrown from a ship I couldn't see. Trust was a luxury I couldn't afford, but action was a necessity. Morning arrived, gray and grim. David was all business, dressed for his power lunch at the grill. He kissed my cheek, his lips cool, and dried it I've left your pills out on the counter, sweetheart. He said, his tone clinical, make sure you take them. Dr. Evans said consistency is critical. He paused, studying my face, you look pale. Are you feeling any more clear-headed today? The question was a test. I made my eyes widen, slightly, feigning an effort to concentrate, a little. Still tired. The headache is there, in the background. He nodded, a satisfied glint in his eyes. The progression was on schedule. Rest today. We'll talk about Switzerland tonight. It wasn't an invitation. It was a statement of agenda. The moment the front door clicked shut, the apartment's silence shifted from oppressive to charged. I had 4 hours, maybe 5. I moved. First, I went to the kitchen. The pills sat in the organizer, tiny sentinels of my decline. I took the organizer to the sink, emptied the beige capsule and its companions into my hand, and flushed them down the garbage disposal. I refilled the slots with lookalikes from the various bottles. My hands steady now, with purpose, not fear. The performance would continue, but the script was about to change. Next, I went to the study. The blue Chinese porcelain vase was on a high shelf, a wedding gift from a business associate of David's. I'd always thought it garish. I took it down, Y fingers probing inside the narrow neck. They brushed against cold metal. A small, silver key on a plain ring. Unit number 314. I set the key aside and turned to the filing cabinet. My heart thudded against my ribs as I pulled open the bottom drawer. The unmarked folder was exactly as I'd left it, but was it exactly? Had David moved it a millimeter? I couldn't tell. I lifted it out, carried it to his desk, and laid the contents bare under the harsh light of his architect's lamp. I used my phone, methodically photographing every page. The insurance policy with its obscene payout and forged signature. The power of attorney, a document signing away my autonomy. The chilling, clinical symptom log where my life was reduced to data points. And the email, the damning, time-stamped blueprint for my murder before Christmas. The flash illuminated the room in stark bursts. Each click of the camera shutter felt like a nail in David's coffin, or mine. I checked every photo for clarity, zooming in on signatures and dates. Then, with meticulous care, I reassembled the folder and returned it to its hiding place behind the 2024 tax returns. I slid the drawer shut, listening for the soft click. It sounded like a cell door locking. I had the photos. I had the key. Now I needed to disappear for the afternoon. I texted my friend Claire, the one I'd used as an alibi before. Hey, feeling a bit cooped up. Any chance you're free for a late lunch/coffee around 3? Need some girl time? Her reply was almost immediate. Absolutely. Been worried about you. Maison Pickwick. 3:30. It was perfect. The cafe was downtown, a world away from the storage facility on 47th. Perfect. See you then. I dressed in nondescript clothes, dark jeans, a black sweater, a navy pea coat, a knit beanie. I shoved the key deep into my jeans pocket. I packed a large tote bag with my laptop, a portable scanner I'd bought years ago and never used, and a manila envelope. I didn't know what I'd find in the storage unit, but I needed to be ready to document it. I left the apartment, taking the service elevator down to the basement garage instead of the main lobby. I didn't take my car, it was too easily tracked. I walked 2 blocks in the opposite direction of the storage facility. Then, I hailed a cab .47 th between 10th and 11th. Please. The driver grunted in affirmation. I spent the ride watching the city blur past. My mind racing. What was in Unit 314? More of David's records. Maria's blackmail stash. A body. The last thought sent a jolt of pure terror through me. Manhattan Mini Storage was a bland, concrete block of a building. I paid the cab in cash and walked in, pulling my hat lower. The interior was brightly lit and smelled of dust and industrial cleaner. A bored clerk behind bulletproof glass barely looked up from his phone. Help you? Just accessing my unit. I said, why voice purposely rough, gates around back. Code's the last four of your unit number, plus the year. Unit 314. So the code would be 4314, or 314-2025. I tried 4314 at the keypad by the steel gate. A green light blinked, and the gate buzzed open. So Maria had set it up, or David had, and she'd stolen the key. The corridor was endless, lined with identical orange roll-up doors. The air was cool and still. My footsteps echoed. 312, 313, 314. I stood before it, the key heavy in my hand. This was it. I slid the key into the padlock. It turned with a smooth click. I took a deep breath, grabbed the handle, and pulled. The door rattled up, revealing not a deep unit, but a shallow, locker-sized space. It wasn't filled with boxes. It contained a single item, a small, fireproof, safe, gunmetal gray, sitting on the concrete floor. No bodies, no stacks of damning files, just a safe. I knelt down. It had a digital keypad, no keyhole. I stared at it. Maria hadn't given me a combination. Was this a trick? A dead end designed to waste my time? Frustration bubbled up, hot and desperate. I'd come this far. I pressed my forehead against the cool metal of the safe. Think, Hannah, what would Maria use? A birthday. David's. Mine. An anniversary. I tried my birthday. 0821. The keypad beeped angrily. I tried David's. 1103. Another beep. Our wedding anniversary. 0915. Nothing. Then it hit me. The date on the insurance policy. The start of it all. I pulled out my phone, scrolled to the photo. The policy was dated March 17th, St. Patrick's Day. 0317. My fingers trembled as I punched in 0-3-1-7. A soft, satisfying thunk emanated from the safe. I pulled the handle, and the door swung open. Inside was a stack of documents, a small digital camera, and a handful of USB drives. On top of the stack was a single sheet of notebook paper, folded. I opened it. The handwriting was neat, feminine. Hannah, if you're reading this, you found the key and you're smarter than he thinks. The camera has photos from the last 6 months. The drives have audio files, backup copies. He doesn't know they exist. I took them for insurance. I thought he loved me. I was wrong. He loves the money. He was going to pin it all on me when it was done. The hysterical, jealous mistress. I saw the emails. You need to go to the police, but you need more than what's here. They'll say it's circumstantial. You need him to admit it. You need to make him feel safe, then make him slip up. He's arrogant. Use that. The safe deposit box key is taped underneath the safe. Box hashtag 722. First United Bank on 72nd. Password for the drives is our friend's birthday. You know the one. M. I read it twice, the word swimming. He was going to pin it all on me. Oh, Maria wasn't just a scorned woman. She was a potential fall girl. She'd been planning her own exit strategy. I felt a sliver of grim solidarity. We were both victims of David's designs, though her hands were far from clean. I reached under the safe. Sure enough, a small, silver safe deposit box key was affixed with duct tape. I pocketed it. I turned to the camera. It was a small high-end model. I powered it on and scrolled through the photos. My breath caught. There were pictures of David and Maria together, intimate but not scandalous. Coffee in the kitchen, her hand on his arm. But then came the others. Photos of documents on David's computer screen. Emails to Dr. Evans that drafts of the amended will he'd had me sign during my foggy. Period. Financial projections that showed his firm's liquidity crisis being solved by a personal capital infusion, timed for early January. $10 million would solve a lot of problems. Next, I plugged one of the USB drives into my laptop using the portable battery pack I'd brought. The drive prompted for a password. Our friend's birthday. You know the one? It took me a moment. Our friend. Maria had no friends in my life. Then I realized she meant Dr. Evans. Our friend the doctor. I navigated back to the photos on my phone. Found the insurance application with Evans's signature. His license number was there. I tried the last 4 digits. Nothing. I tried his birth date, which was listed. 05/231965. The drive unlocked. The folders were meticulously labeled. Audio_kitchen. Audio_study. Audio_phone. I clicked on the first one. It was a recording from the kitchen, time-stamped from 3 months ago. Maria's voice, hushed and tense. David, this is taking too long. She's not getting worse fast enough. David's voice, impatient, we stick to the plan. Evans says the cumulative effect is key. Sudden decline looks suspicious. We need it to look like a tragic, natural illness. The insurance company has investigators, Maria. They're not stupid, and what about me? What happens after? You promise me we'll be together. But all I do is clean up her mess and watch you play the devoted husband he'll be taken care of. You know that. But you have to be patient and stop with the little games. The stained silk, the moved jewelry, it's reckless. You're supposed to be driving her crazy, not giving her concrete reasons to fire you. So the violations had been a campaign designed to undermine my sanity. Tio make my later cognitive decline more believable. And David had known. He'd been directing it. I scrolled to another file labeled audio_Evans_confirm. This was the clearer, more damning version of the snippet I had on my recorder. The full conversation. Evans. The MP3 analog is undetectable in standard panels. By the time anyone thinks to test for it, the neurological degradation will be consistent with a rare, aggressive Parkinson's plus syndrome. The insurance medical examiner will be looking for natural causes, not toxins. David, and the timeline. I have investors breathing down my neck. The fund needs that liquidity by Q1. Evans. With the increased dosage in the new batch, we can induce a catastrophic neurological event, a fall, a choking incident within 6 to 8 weeks. The POA gives you control. You move her to the Swiss clinic for specialized care, where I have an associate. She'll be declared terminal within a month. A mercy killing in a foreign country, with all the paperwork in order. Clean. David, clean. I like that. I stopped the recording, bile rising in my throat. It was so much worse than I'd imagined. They weren't just waiting for me to die. They had a script for my final act, complete with a supporting cast in Switzerland. I gathered everything, the documents, the camera, the USB drives, and placed them in my tote bag. I left the safe empty and open, a silent message to Maria that I'd been there. I relocked the storage unit and slipped out of the building, merging with the afternoon crowds on 10th Avenue. My phone buzzed. A text from David. Lunch running long. Hope you're resting. See you for dinner. We'll talk about Switzerland. The casual cruelty of it. The banality of evil over a text message. He was at a power lunch discussing mergers and acquisitions while his other merger why death was neatly on track. I hailed another cab giving the address for Maison Pickwick. I was early. I found a corner booth in the back ordered a coffee I wouldn't drink and opened my laptop. Using the cafe's Wi-Fi, I uploaded every photo, every audio file, to the 3 separate encrypted cloud storage accounts. I sent the login credentials for one of them to a brand new anonymous email address I created, then emailed that address to Claire's personal account with the subject line, "If anything happens to me," and no body text. It was a digital dead man's switch. If I disappeared, Claire would eventually get curious about the weird email and find the link to a trove of evidence. I was just finishing when Claire bustled into, her cheerful face a jarring contrast to my inner turmoil. "Hannah, you look." She trailed off, her smile fading. "Honey, are you okay? You look exhausted." I forced a smile, just a rough patch. "David thinks I need a change of scenery. Maybe a health retreat in Switzerland." Claire's brows knit together as she slid into the booth. "Switzerland? That's sudden. Is everything okay with you two?" She leaned in, lowering her voice. "The gossip is he's been under a lot of pressure at the fund. Liquidity issues. But he wouldn't. I mean, he's not taking it out on you. I see." The concern in her eyes was genuine. Claire had never liked David, finding him too polished, too controlling. I'd always defended him. Now, her intuition felt like a lifeline. "The pressure is getting to him," I said, carefully, choosing my words like stepping stones across a river. "He's been different. Secretive. I don't trust his new doctor. This Dr. Evans." Claire's eyes widened. "Evans. Robert Evans. The neurologist." My pulse spiked. "You know him, not personally. But my cousin Margot is a malpractice attorney. She's mentioned his name. Nothing public, but there were whispers, settlements, families of patients who declined rapidly under his personalized care. Hannah, if David has you seeing him." She reached across the table and grabbed my hand. "You get a second opinion. Today. Don't take another pill he prescribes." Tears pricked my eyes, born of fear and the shock of validation that I can't. "Not yet. Claire, I need you to promise me something. If I seem off, if I disappear, or if something happens to me, you need to look at that email I just sent you. Promise me." She stared at me, her face pale. "Hannah, you're scaring me." "What's going on? I can't explain." "Not yet. Just promise me." She squeezed my hand, her grip fierce. "I promise. But you have to get out of there. Come stay with me. Tonight." I shook my head. "I can't. Not yet. He'd know. It would make things worse." I was thinking of the timeline, of the accelerated plan. If I ran, he might act immediately. I had to stay and fight on ground of my choosing. "Just be my lifeline, Claire. Please." "Always," she whispered, her eyes filled with fear for me. An hour later, I was back in the apartment, the tote bag of evidence hidden in a vacuum-sealed bag inside my winter coat, in a garment bag in the back of my closet. The originals were safe. The backups were made. The dead man's switch was set. Now, Maria's note said I needed an admission. I needed to make David feel safe, then make him slip up. He arrived home at 7 p.m., carrying the scent of whiskey and expensive steak. "How was your day, sweetheart?" he asked, hanging up his coat. His eyes scanned me, looking for signs of deterioration. "Quiet," I said, allowing a slight slur to enter my speech. I tried to read. The words kept swimming. I rubbed my eyes. He smiled, a genuine-looking smile of paternal concern. "That's the fatigue. It's okay. We'll get you the help you need." He came over and put his hands on my shoulders. "I spoke to Dr. Evans today. He's very encouraged by your willingness to consider the Swiss program. He can get you in next week." Next week. The timeline had just accelerated again. The shock must have shown on my face. So soon. I mumbled, "The sooner we address this, the better the outcome." He said, his voice dripping with fake hope, "It's a beautiful facility. You'll be well cared for. Until you're not." I looked up at him, into the eyes of the man I'd loved, and saw only the cold calculation of a predator. He thought I was already half gone, a docile lamb being led to the slaughter. Good. Let him think that. I let my shoulders slump. A picture of defeated acceptance. If you think it's best, David. He pulled me into a hug. Resting his chin on my head. I do, Hannah. I only want what's best for you. Over his shoulder. My eyes were wide open. Clear. And burning with a cold, focused fire. He wanted to move the timeline up. Fine. The game was on. And for the first time I had the playbook. The next 3 days were a masterclass in sustained duplicity. I became the perfect, pliable patient. I leaned into every symptom David expected, but with a new, subtle twist. A flicker of fear, a childlike dependence on him. I stopped pretending to understand simple things. David, I'd say, holding up the TV remote, my brow furrowed in genuine-looking confusion. How does this work again? The buttons. They don't make sense. He'd take it from me with a sigh that was equal parts pity and impatience. Here, sweetheart, this one is power. Let me do it. He'd turn on the news to something he knew I found overstimulating. I'd stare blankly at the screen, letting my eyes glaze over. I stopped, remembering. To eat unless he placed food in front of me. I'd pick at it listlessly, not hungry. I'd murmur, "You have to keep your strength up, Hannah." He'd say, his voice tight. I could see the frustration beneath the concern. My rapid decline, while according to his plan's new accelerated schedule, was becoming inconvenient. It required more of his performance. My phone, now, perpetually on silent, was my secret weapon. I began recording our interactions using a voice memo app Maria had recommended in a new, terse text. I'd slip the phone into the pocket of my robe or leave it face down on a nearby table. On Wednesday morning, AS, he prepared to leave for work. I staged a small crisis. I stood in the middle of the living room, turning in a slow circle. Face a mask of panicked bewilderment. David, I can't find it. I can't find my thing. For my head. He stopped his briefcase in hand. Your glasses, N-O. The blue one. The soft one. I was describing an ice pack we hadn't used in years. He pinched the bridge of his nose. Hannah, there is no blue soft thing. You're confused. It's okay. Just sit down, but I need it. My voice rose, tinged with a hysterical edge I'd learned from watching old movies. My head hurt so much, and the blue thing helps. Did you take it? Did you hide it from me? I was towing the line, accusing him. I needed to see his reaction when he thought I was too far gone to be a threat. His expression darkened for a split second, a flash of pure, unadulterated annoyance. Then the mask of the weary caregiver slammed back into place. No, sweetheart, I didn't take it. It's probably in the bathroom cabinet. Why don't you go lie down? I'll call Dr. Evans. See if we can get something stronger for the pain. He guided me to the bedroom, his grip firmer than necessary. As he turned to leave, I caught his mutter, barely audible. Christ, this is happening faster than he said. The recording captured it perfectly. The slip, the confirmation. Later that day, another text from Maria arrived. Safe deposit box. Go tomorrow. He has a trustee meeting at the Harvard Club from 10 to 1. Bank is 2 blocks from your building. Use the back entrance to the lobby. The key felt like a brand in my pocket. I hadn't dared go to the bank, yet too paranoid about being followed. But Maria's detailed knowledge of David's schedule was my armor. Thursday morning, I played my part with extra vigor. I pretended to have a bad night, talking nonsense about dreams where the numbers were eating the colors. David looked genuinely unsettled, maybe even a little scared. Good. Fear could make people careless. The moment he left for his trustee meeting, I moved. I didn't change my clothes, I was still in the worn yoga pants and oversized sweater he'd last seen me in. I pulled on my pea coat and beanie, shoved the key in my pocket, and took the service elevator down. Instead of leaving through the main entrance, I cut through the building's underground parking garage, exiting onto the side street. I walked quickly. Head down 0.2 blocks to the First United Bank. The bank was hushed. All polished marble and murmured conversations. I felt wildly out of place in my disheveled state. But that was part of the disguise. I was the eccentric, rich woman. Not a threat. I approached a teller. I'd like to access my safe deposit box. Please. Number 722. She asked for my key and ID. I handed over the key, and with a trembling hand, why driver's license? Hannah Winslow. If Maria had put the box in my name, it was a huge risk. The teller examined the license. Typed something into her computer. And nodded. Right this way. Mrs. Winslow. Relief. Sharp and giddy. Washed over me. Maria had been smart. She'd somehow set it up in my name. Making access simple. I was led to the vault room. The attendant inserted her key. I inserted mine. And the long metal box slid out. She left me in a small private viewing room. My hands were steady as I lifted the lid. Inside were more documents. But these were different, older. At the top was a marriage certificate, not mine and David's. David Arthur Winslow and Maria Elena Flores. The date was 5 years ago. A quick, quiet ceremony in Las Vegas. The room spun. He was married to her. The affair wasn't an affair. It was a bigamous second marriage. Or had he married her first? No, our wedding was 6 years ago. A massive, society page event. He'd married bigamously. I was the other woman in my own marriage. Beneath the certificate were photos of them together. Affectionate, spanning years. A lease for an apartment in Queens in both their names. Bank statements for a joint account with steady deposits from David's main account. Hush money. Or a salary for her role in our domestic tragedy. And then, the crown jewel, a notarized document, a contract between David Winslow and Maria Flores. It outlined her duties. Maintain employment in the Winslow residence. Administer prescribed supplements to subject HW report on subject's condition. And provide testimony. If necessary, TO support narrative of subject's mental and physical decline. In return, upon the successful execution of the agreed-upon outcome and the disbursement of related funds, she would receive $2 million and his assistance in relocating abroad. It was a murder-for-hire contract. Cold, clinical, and signed by both of them, but paper-clipped to the front of it was a handwritten note from Maria, dated just 2 weeks ago. David, I'm out. The new timeline is too fast. It's messy. I won't be your scapegoat. I'm keeping this. If anything happens to me, IT goes to the DA. You'll never see the money either. M. So she'd finally gotten cold feet. She wasn't just saving me. She was saving herself from being the patsy in a rushed, sloppy murder. She'd stolen the most damning evidence and was now using me as her proxy in this war. I photographed every single page. The bigamy, the contract, the note. It was more than I'd ever hoped for. This wasn't just about poisoning. It was about fraud, conspiracy, premeditated murder with a financial beneficiary who stood to gain from 2 marriages. I placed everything back in the box exactly as I found it, except for Maria's recent note, which I pocketed. It was a direct communication, a piece of the current timeline. I needed it. As I left the bank, the bright midday sun felt surreal. I had it, the proof that could put him away for life. But Maria's warning echoed. They'll say it's circumstantial. You need him to admit it. I needed a confession, and I knew how to get one. When David returned home that afternoon, he found me, asleep, on the sofa. I'd taken one of the harmless beige capsules from the kitchen bottle and left it half crushed on the coffee table next to a spilled glass of water, a stage scene of a failed attempt to take my medication. He shook me gently. Hannah. I blinked awake, slowly letting my gaze wander past him, unfocused. David, is it time for my pills? I tried, but my hands. I gestured weakly toward the mess. He looked at the crushed capsule, his expression unreadable. Then he crouched in front of me. It's okay. I'll help you. His voice was soft, but there was a new intensity in his eyes. A resolve. The accelerated timeline was putting pressure on him. We need to talk about Switzerland. Hannah, Dr. Evans has secured place. We leave Tuesday. 3 days. Panic. Real this time. Clawed at my throat. I couldn't get on a plane to Switzerland. That was a one-way trip. I let a tear slip down my cheek. I'm scared, David. I don't want to go away. What's wrong with me? Why is this happening? I reached out and clutched his hand, making my grip feeble. Please, tell me the truth. Am I dying? He looked at our joined hands, then into my eyes. I saw a war behind his own. Guilt, greed, impatience, and the monstrous lie he'd been living for years. He saw a helpless, broken woman, his final obstacle to freedom and fortune. He took a deep breath, and for a moment, I thought he might actually confess, might break down under the weight of it all. But the mask held it's a progressive illness, Hannah. The doctors here, they've done all they can. This place in Switzerland, it's our last hope. He squeezed my hand. You have to be brave. For me, the hypocrisy was breathtaking. I buried my face in my hands, letting out a sob that was only half feigned. My phone, tucked between the couch cushions, was recording it all. That night, I put my plan into motion. I waited until he was in a deep sleep. Then I slipped out of bed. I went to the study. Using the key I'd copied from the one in the vase, I opened the filing cabinet and removed the unmarked folder. I didn't take it all. I only took the email, the one outlining the target window, and the Swiss clinic. I hid the email in my closet, with the rest of the evidence. Then, in the morning, I waited for the right moment. David was on edge, packing a small suitcase for himself, making calls to the office about extended family medical leave. He was setting the stage. Over coffee, I spoke, my voice clearer than it had been in days, though I kept it soft. David, I was thinking last night. About us. About the beginning. He looked up, wary. What about IT? Oh, you remember, our first date. At that little French bistro that closed down. You told me you loved how independent I was. That you'd never met a woman who challenged you like I did. I let a sad smile touch my lips. I'm not that woman anymore, am I? He shifted uncomfortably. People change, Hannah. Life happens. This isn't change. This is erosion. I looked directly at him, dropping the confused act for just a moment, letting a spark of my old self through. And I don't think it's natural. His face went very still. What are you saying? I'm saying I'm scared of Dr. Evans. I'm scared of the pills. I'm scared of Switzerland. I held his gaze. I found an email, David, on your computer, about a timeline, about a target window before Christmas. The color drained from his face. The careful facade cracked, revealing raw, startled panic beneath. What email? Hannah, you're confused. You don't know what you're talking about. Your mind is playing tricks. It's printed out. I interrupted, my voice still quiet, but steady. I have it. I know about the increased dosage. I know about the Swiss clinic not being for treatment. I know about the $10 million. Silence, thick and choking, filled the kitchen. He stared at me, his expression cycling through shock, disbelief, and finally, at a dawning, furious comprehension. The puppet had cut her own strings, you. He breathed all this. The confusion. It was an act. I said nothing. I just watched him. His shock hardened into something cold and dangerous. The caring husband vanished, replaced by the ruthless financier cornered. Where is it? The email. Somewhere safe. Copies are somewhere safer. He took a step toward me, his voice dropping to a menacing whisper. You have no idea what you're dealing with, Hannah. You think a piece of paper is going to stop this. You're sick. You're paranoid. No one will believe a word you say. They'll see a mentally unstable woman lashing out at her devoted husband. They'll believe the recording of you and Dr. Evans planning my murder. I said they'll believe the contract with Maria. They'll believe the bigamy. At the mention of Maria's name and the word bigamy, his composure shattered. Real fear. Now that I in his eyes, Maria. That bitch. What has she told you? Everything. She gave me the key to your storage unit, to your safe deposit box. She's been saving evidence, David. Insurance. Against you. He let out a harsh, humorless laugh, and you trust her. She's in this as deep as I am. She's just covering her own ass that I know. I said calmly. But her ass covering includes giving me everything I need to put you in prison for the rest of your life. The police might cut her a deal for her testimony, but you're the mastermind. He lunged then, not at me, but for my purse on the counter. He snatched it, dumping the contents onto the floor. He grabbed my phone, fumbling with the lock, looking for the recordings. I asked, they're not on there. They're in the cloud. And if I don't log in and disable a certain timer by 6 p.m. tonight, that they get emailed to the district attorney, that the SEC, and the New York Times. I was bluffing about the specifics, but the core threat was real. He froze, my phone in his hand, looking at me as if seeing a stranger. The weak, fading wife was gone. In her place was an adversary. He slowly put the phone down. The fight seemed to drain out of him, replaced by a calculating coldness. What do you want? Hannah, I want you to leave. Tonight, I want you to sign a confession outlining everything, the poisoning, the insurance fraud, the plan with Evans. I'll give you enough money to disappear. If you do that, I won't send the evidence. I'll file for divorce quietly. You walk away with your life, but not a dime of my money or that insurance. He stared at me, and a slow, ugly smile spread across his face. It was the most terrifying expression I'd ever seen on him, or. He said softly, there's another option, a simpler one, the original plan, a tragic accident, here, tonight, a fall down the stairs, a confused, sick woman who shouldn't have been left alone. The timeline just moves up a few days. The evidence dies with you. Maria is a disgruntled ex-lover with a grudge. Her word against mine. He took a step closer. You shouldn't have shown your hand. Hannah, now I know what I'm dealing with. And I know I can't let you leave this kitchen. The game had finally, violently escalated. The devoted husband was gone. Only the killer remained. And he was between me and the door. The air in the kitchen turned to glass. David stood between me and the archway leading to the hall, his body coiled with a new, predatory tension. The civilized mask had not just slipped, it had shattered. The man before me was a stranger, his eyes flat and calculating a fall down the stairs. He repeated, his voice eerily conversational, it's sad, really. Your decline was so rapid. Dr. Evans will be devastated he couldn't do more. I'll be a grieving wreck. But life goes on. He took another step. I took a step back, my hip hitting the cold edge of the granite countertop. Trapped. My mind, which had been racing with strategy, and bluff, froze into pure, primal fear. This was the moment it stopped being about evidence and became about survival. He had size, strength, and the absolute conviction of a man with nothing left to lose. The evidence is already gone. David, I said, forcing my voice not to tremble, it's out there. Killing me just proves it's true. Proves what? He sneered, taking another deliberate step, that a sick, unstable woman had paranoid delusions and tragically fell. The only people who've seen your so-called evidence are you and a criminal accomplice who's already fled the country. Maria's probably halfway to Belize by now with whatever she stole. Who do you think the police will believe? The pillar of the community with a flawless record, or the hysterical wife with a history of mental health issues? He was right. He'd planned for this. My history was his creation, documented by a respected doctor. My death would be the final perfect piece of his narrative. I had one card left to play and it was a dangerous one what about the bigamy? I blurted out, Maria is your wife. Legally. I found the certificate. That's not a delusion. That's a public record in Las Vegas. You think the police won't find that I didn't send it to someone. Claire knows something's wrong. My lawyer has instructions. A flicker of doubt crossed his face. The marriage to Maria was a loose end at a piece of ego or sentimentality he hadn't tied up. He'd underestimated her and now it was a chink in his armor. Claire is a gossipy socialite. He countered but his voice had lost a fraction of its certainty. And you haven't seen a lawyer in months. I've monitored your calls. You didn't monitor my emails from the library. I shot back to the lie coming easily in my desperation or my visit to a new attorney last week when I was supposedly at the museum. Peter Caldwell. Look him up. He specializes in high net worth, matrimonial disputes, and criminal conspiracy. Another lie. Peter Caldwell was a real lawyer point one whose ads I'd seen on the subway. But the seed was planted. His confidence wavered. The plan had been predicated on my isolation, why growing incapacity. This version of me, coherent, defiant, connected, wasn't part of the script. He was silent for a long moment, weighing the risks. The kitchen clock ticked loudly. I could see the calculations behind his eyes. Murdering me now, in a rage that was messy. It required immediate, flawless execution and disposal. His original plan had been clean, medical, distanced. I pressed my slim advantage, why voice dropping to a whisper, or you can take the deal, David. Walk away. Sign the confession. Give me the divorce. You disappear, and I disappear. You keep your freedom. I get my life. He laughed, a short, sharp bark, and live in fear for the rest of my life that you'll change your mind, that your conscience will get the better of you. No deal, Hannah. You've proven you're not the docile little victim I thought you were. That makes you a permanent liability. His eyes flicked past me to the knife block on the counter. It was a subtle shift, but I caught it. The premeditation was gone. Now it was about improvisation. A knife was messy. Blood was evidence. But a desperate man might not care, the timer. I said, quickly, why heart hammering against my ribs? The evidence goes out at 6. You have 4 hours. Is that enough time to kill me, clean up, stage an accident, and somehow explain why I was in the kitchen with a stab wound? Or why my neck was broken away from the stairs? You're not a crime scene expert, David. You're a money manager. You plan. You don't do messy. His jaw clenched. I'd hit a nerve. He was a strategist, not a brute. Violence was a tool in his plan, but it was a clinical, removed violence, poison administered over months. This was different. 0.4 hours. He mused at his gaze sliding back to me. That's enough time to make you tell me where the backups are. To disable your little dead man switch. A new kind of fear, cold and slick, dripped down my spine. He wasn't talking about a quick push down the stairs anymore. He was talking about interrogation. You can't torture it out of me, David, I said, but my voice shook. The trigger is with my lawyer. If I don't call him by 5 with a code word, he releases everything. You hurt me, you get nothing but a faster trip to prison. Another lie, layered on top of the others. My house of cards was getting taller and more unstable. We stood in a stalemate, 2 predators circling. He needed to silence me, but the methods available to him now were all high risk. I needed to escape, but the only exit was through him. Then, a sound saved me. The distinctive buzz of the intercom from the building's front desk. We both froze. The voice of Carlos, the daytime doorman, crackled through .mr. Winslow, delivery for you. Needs a signature. David's head snapped toward the intercom panel on the wall. His eyes darted between me and the door. A witness. An interruption. Tell them to leave it at the desk. David barked, moving toward the intercom, that he says it's legal documents, sir. Required signature. He's insistent. Legal documents. The words hung in the air. Was it the lie coming true? Had Claire actually done something? Had Maria? David's face was a storm of indecision. He couldn't ignore it. A doorman and a delivery person were alibis. Timelines. I'll be right down. He said into the intercom, his voice tight. He turned to me, his expression vicious. Don't move. Don't make a sound. If you try anything, I will make your death look so convincing they'll give me a medal for putting up with you. He grabbed my arm, his fingers digging in painfully, and half dragged, half pushed me toward the large pantry. He shoved me inside and closed the door. I heard the distinct click of the old-fashioned skeleton key, lock turning from the outside. Darkness. The smell of spices and cleaning supplies. I was locked in. I fumbled for my phone, but my pocket was empty. He'd taken it when he dumped my purse. Panic surged again, hot and blinding. I pressed my ear against the door. I heard his footsteps recede, then the front door open and close. He was going downstairs. This was my chance. I had maybe 3 minutes. The pantry door was solid wood, the lock old but sturdy. I couldn't break it down. I looked around the pitch blackness. Shelves of canned goods, paper towels, a step stool. My hands felt along the walls, the shelves. In the back corner, Y fingers brushed against something cold and metallic. The shut-off valve for the sink. No, it was a pipe, a small access panel for plumbing. I clawed at the edges. It was held in place by 2 small flathead screws. I had no screwdriver. Desperation fueled me. I grabbed a can of tomatoes from the shelf, feeling for the sharp edge of the pull-tab lid. It was flimsy, but I bent it back and forth until a piece snapped off, leaving a jagged, flat metal edge. A makeshift screwdriver. My hands shook as I fit the metal into the groove of the first screw. It kept slipping. I could hear the distant chime of the elevator. He was coming back up. I twisted with all my strength, Y fingers screaming in protest. The screw turned a quarter inch, then stuck. I worked Y breath coming in ragged sobs. It gave, turning freely. 1 down. The second screw was tighter. The metal tab bent in my grip. The elevator chimed again. Closer. He was on our floor. I dropped the tab, Y fingers raw. I grabbed the screw head with my fingernails, pulling, twisting. It was useless. With a cry of frustration, I slammed the heel of my hand against the access panel. The drywall around it, old and brittle, cracked. I hit it again, ignoring the pain. A chunk gave way. I pulled at the broken edges, tearing a hole big enough to get my hand through. I felt the back of the screw on the other side. I pinched it between 2 fingers and twisted. It moved. The front door opened. I froze, Y breath caught in my throat. I heard David's footsteps in the foyer, then moving toward the kitchen. He was muttering to himself. I gave the screw one final, desperate twist. It came free. I pulled the access panel off, creating a hole just big enough to squeeze through. It led into the narrow, dusty space behind the kitchen cabinets. I heard the key scrape in the pantry lock. I wriggled through the hole, tearing my sweater, scraping my back on a protruding pipe. I was in. I pulled the panel back into place as best I could just as the pantry door swung open. Light flooded the pantry. I crouched in the absolute darkness of the crawl space, Y heart pounding so loudly I was sure he could hear it. Hannah. His voice was a low growl. Silence. I heard him step into the pantry, his shoes scuffing on the floor. He was inches away, separated only by a thin layer of drywall and wood. I could smell his cologne. Clever girl. He murmured, his voice dripping with a venomous mix of anger and something like admiration. But not clever enough. I heard him turn and leave the pantry. His footsteps moved away, Then I heard the front door open and close again. He was leaving. Was it a trick? I didn't dare move. I counted to 100, then 200. The apartment was silent. Cautiously, I pushed the access panel open a crack. The kitchen was empty. I crawled out, my body aching. I had to get out. Now, I went to the front door, peering through the peephole. The hallway was empty. I didn't have my keys, my phone, my wallet. Nothing. But I had to go. I opened the door and slipped out, pulling it shut quietly behind me. I didn't wait for the elevator. I ran for the stairwell and took the stairs 2 at a time. My socks silent on the concrete. I burst out into the lobby. Carlos, the doorman, looked up from his desk, startled, Mrs. Winslow, are you all right? I must have looked a sight, disheveled, wild dash, and oh shoes. Carlos, listen to me. My husband. He's not well. He's having an episode. If he comes down looking for me, tell him I went to Claire's. Do you understand? Claire Abernathy's building. It's very important. Carlos's eyes widened. He'd seen David leave moments ago, stone-faced and carrying a small duffel bag. He nodded slowly. Yes, ma'am. Of course. Should I call the police? No. No police. Not yet. Just tell him Claire's. Thank you, Carlos. I ran out onto the street, the cold pavement shocking my sock-clad feet. I didn't head for Claire's. That was the misdirection. I turned and ran in the opposite direction toward the bustling heart of the Upper East Side. I needed a phone. I needed a safe place. I ducked into a crowded Starbucks, the warmth and noise a shocking contrast to the silent terror of the apartment. I went straight to a young woman sitting alone with a laptop. Please. I gasped at tears, now streaming down my face freely. Please, I need to use your phone. My husband. He tried to hurt me. I need to call my friend. Please. The woman's eyes went from startled to concerned. Oh my God. Of course. She handed me her iPhone without hesitation. My fingers numb with cold and fear. Dialed Claire's number from memory. Hello. Claire's voice was a lifeline. Claire Tana. Don't say my name. Listen. David knows. He tried to lock me in. I'm out. I'm at the Starbucks on 86th and Lex. I have no shoes, no phone, no money. He thinks I'm coming to you. You can't go home. You need to leave your apartment right now and go to a hotel. Pay cash. Don't tell anyone where you are. Eat Hannah. What no time. The evidence is in a vacuum-sealed bag in the garment bag in the back of my closet. The blue one. You need to get it, but not alone. Take someone, a big someone, maybe your brother. Do it now. Before David goes there looking for me. Then go to the police, not the local precinct. Go to the Manhattan DA's office. Ask for the major crimes or frauds unit. Tell them you have evidence of a murder for hire and spousal poisoning. Show them the storage unit key, the bank key. Tell them about Maria Flores. Do you understand? Yes, I understand. But where are you going? You have to come with me, I can't. He'll look for me with you. I have to be the diversion. I have to make him confess. Claire, it's the only way to make it stick. I have a plan. Just do what I said. Please. And Claire, thank you. I hung up before she could protest and handed the phone back to the stunned woman. Thank you. Please forget this happened. I ran out of the Starbucks. I had one place left to go. One person who held the final piece of the puzzle, and who was, perhaps, the only person David might confess to if he thought he'd already won. I hailed a cab, barefoot and trembling. The driver looked at me like I was insane. Please. I said, my voice breaking, I need to go to this address. It's a medical emergency. I gave him the address for Dr. Robert Evans's office. As the cab pulled away from the curb, I saw a black town car. David's town car screeched to a halt in front of our building. He was back, and he was looking for me. But he was looking in the wrong place. I was going to the source. I was going to turn his partner in crime into my final witness. The cab ride to Dr. Evans's office was a blur of honking horns and my own ragged breathing. I had no money to SO when we pulled up to the sleek building. I shoved the silver safe deposit box key into the driver's hand. It's solid silver. It's worth more than the fare. Please. He looked from the key to my bare feet and wild eyes that shrugged and drove off. I stumbled through the revolving doors into the serene muted lobby. The afternoon receptionist, a different woman from my last visit, looked up, her polite smile freezing at the sight of me. I need to see Dr. Evans. Now, it's an emergency concerning David Winslow. My voice was raw, stripped of all pretense. You have an appointment, M.A. She trailed off, uncertain. Tell him Hannah Winslow is here. And that if he doesn't see me immediately, the next people walking through that door will be from the district attorney's office with the contract he signed with my husband and the audio of him prescribing my murder. Her face went bone white. She picked up the phone, her hand shaking, and murmured into it. A moment later, she nodded, he'll see you. Go right in. I walked past her, down the hushed corridor and pushed open the door to Dr. Evans's consultation room without knocking. He was standing behind his desk, his usual avuncular calm replaced by a stark ashen fear. The kind, intelligent eyes were now wide with panic. Mrs. Winslow, he began, his voice unsteady. What is the meaning of these outrageous, save it? I cut him off, closing the door and leaning against it. My legs felt weak, but my will was iron. David tried to kill me an hour ago. He's unraveling. Your neat, clinical plan is now a messy, bloody disaster. And you are up to your neck in it. He sank into his chair. I don't know what you're talking about. The MPP analog. The Swiss clinic. The target window before Christmas. The $10 million insurance policy. The marriage certificate to Maria Flores. I fired each piece of evidence like a bullet. With each one, he flinched. I have it all. Audio, documents, contracts. It's already in the hands of my lawyer and the police. They're on their way to a storage unit and a safe deposit box as we speak. The last shred of color drained from his face. Maria. He whispered the name a curse. She turned on you both. Smart woman. She saw she was the designated fall girl. I took a step toward his desk. You have one chance, doctor. One. To avoid spending the rest of your life in a prison cell, next to the husband you conspired with. What chance? He asked, his voice hollow. They're going to call David. Right now. You're going to tell him I came here, hysterical, making wild accusations, but that you calmed me down. That I confessed I'd hidden the only copy of the evidence here, in your office, because I was afraid of him. That I'm here now, sedated, in one of your treatment rooms. That he needs to come here immediately to deal with the situation, to retrieve the evidence and handle his unstable wife. Evans stared at me, comprehension dawning, followed by horror. You want me to lure him here? I want you to give him the one thing he wants most, a chance to silence me and destroy the evidence in one stroke. And you're going to record the entire conversation, every word. When he arrives, you're going to get him to admit to the plan. On tape, he'll kill me. Evans breathed, he might try, but I won't be sedated in a back room, doctor. I'll be in the closet in here, with my phone recording. And a police detective I'm about to call will be in the next room. You do this, you give us his confession, and you cut a deal. You testify against him. You walk away with your medical license revoked and maybe some jail time, but not life. Refuse, and you go down with him as a co-conspirator to first-degree murder. Your choice. I could see the calculations racing behind his eyes, the same cold, cost-benefit analysis that had made him agree to this in the first place. Self-preservation, one. What's to stop me from warning him? He asked at a last gasp of defiance. I picked up the ornate letter opener from his desk. It was a feeble weapon, but I held it with a certainty I didn't feel. Because if you so much as hint at this being a trap, that I will scream this building down and tell every patient and nurse in earshot that you're a murderer. And then I will fight him, and you, until one of us is dead. Your clean, quiet life will be over either way. This way, that you have a slim chance to survive. He believed me. The desperate woman before him was capable of anything. He slowly picked up his desk phone, the sleek, modern thing with a speaker. His finger hovered over the button for his private line. Put it on speaker. I ordered. I slipped into the small closet where he kept his white coats and supplies, leaving the door open a crack. I opened the voice memo app on the phone I'd taken from the young woman in Starbucks. I'd pocketed it in my panic. A theft I'd repay 1,000 times over, and hit record. Evans took a shuddering breath and dialed. David picked up on the second ring. Robert, I've been calling you. She's gone. She's out. She knows everything. Evans's voice was impressively steadied at a master of bedside manner. David, calm down. She's here. A beat of stunned silence. What? She came to my office. In a state, babbling about evidence, recordings, contracts. She was completely hysterical. I managed to sedate her. She's in a treatment room. Sleeping. She alone. Did she have anything with her? She had a tote bag. I have it. She claimed it held the only copies. That she was afraid to leave them anywhere else. She said something about a timer, but in her state, I doubt it's credible. She's here, David, and the evidence is here. The greed and relief in David's voice was palpable, even through the speaker. Thank God. You've saved this, Robert. I'm on my way. 20 minutes. Don't let anyone near her. Or that bagged out, of course. But David, we need to think. This is a disaster. The plan. It's exposed. She's talked to people. IT doesn't matter. David said, his voice hardening into the cold resolve I knew too. Well, if the only copies are there, then the problem is contained. We just need to amend the ending. A sedated patient has a catastrophic reaction to medication. A tragic accident in a doctor's office. It's even more believable. We stick to the timeline, just a different location. In the closet, why blood ran cold. He was already crafting the new narrative. Evans played his part perfectly at injecting just the right amount of professional hesitation. David, that's extremely risky. Here. I end my office. It's the only way. Don't lose your nerve now, Robert. We're too close. I'll be there soon. Have everything ready. The line went dead. Evans looked toward the closet, his face slick with sweat, he's coming. I stepped out. Good. Now, you're going to make one more call. I gave him Claire's number. You're going to tell the woman who answers exactly what's happening. That David Winslow is on his way here to kill his wife and that she needs to bring the police to this address now. You're going to give her your name and this office number. It's your proof that you're cooperating. With trembling hands, he made the call. Claire answered, her voice tense. Evans relayed the message, his voice breaking. I heard Claire's sharp intake of breath, then affirm that we're on our way. Now that we waited, the 20 minutes were an eternity. Evans paced. I stood by the window, watching the street below. I saw the black town car pull up, double parking. David got out, moving with purpose, a duffel bag in his hand. My heart hammered against my ribs. I slipped back into the closet, phone recording. Remember, I whispered through the crack. Get him to say it. The plan. The poison. All of it. The office door opened. David strode and his eyes wild, scanning the room. Where is she? In room 3, sedated. The bag is here. Evans gestured to my tote, which he'd placed by his desk. David didn't even look at it. He went straight to the doctor, grabbing him by the lapels of his white coat. Did she speak to anyone else? Did anyone see her? And no. My receptionist, but she doesn't know anything. I handled it. David released him, running a hand through his hair. Okay, okay, this can still work. We need to move fast. What do you have that's untraceable? Something that induces cardiac arrest. Make it look like a reaction to the sedative. Evans swallowed, playing his role, David. This is it. Once we do this, there's no going back. We need to be absolutely clear. For the record, what record? David snapped, for my own conscience. Evans said, his voice rising with a convincing tremor, that I need to hear you say it. We are ending her life because of the insurance money, because of the fund's liquidity, because the MPP wasn't working fast enough. This was always the backup plan. David stared at him, a slow, suspicious frown forming. What's gotten into you, Robert? You knew the plan. You designed the plan. Say it. Evans insisted, a desperate actor, clinging to his lines. Oh, I know we're in this together. So I know I'm not alone in this. This murder. The word hung in the air. David's eyes narrowed. He looked from Evans's pale, sweating face to the closed closet door. His gaze lingered. He was a man who trusted no one, who always looked for the angle. He took a slow step back, his suspicion crystallizing into certainty you're wearing a wire. Or she is. His eyes locked onto the closet. She's in there, isn't she? This is a setup. He moved, not toward the closet, but toward the duffel bag he dropped. He unzipped it and pulled out a small, black handgun. Evans gasped, stumbling back. David, no, you pathetic coward. David spat, leveling the gun at the doctor. You let a dizzy woman outthink you. He then turned the gun toward the closet. Come out, Hannah. Or I put a bullet through this door and then through your good doctor's head. There was no choice. I pushed the closet door open, stepping out, my hands raised. I still held the stolen phone, the recording app, silently glowing. David's smile was triumphant and terrible. There she is. The mastermind. You almost had me. He glanced at the phone in my hand. Drop it. Kick it over here. I did as I was told. The phone skittered across the polished floor. He crushed it under his heel, the screen shattering. The evidence is in the cloud, David. I said, my voice surprisingly calm. You can't smash that, but I can smash you, he said softly, and him. And then I disappear. The evidence will just look like the paranoid ravings of a dead woman and her corrupt doctor. A murder-suicide pact gone wrong. A tragic end to a tragic case of shared madness. He raised the gun, pointing it at my chest. In that endless second, I saw no regret and hesitation, only the cold efficiency of a man removing the last obstacle. Then the world exploded into noise and motion. The door to the consultation room burst open, slamming against the wall. Claire stood there, her face fierce, and behind her .2 uniformed police officers, their own guns drawn, freeze. Drop the weapon. David spun, startled, the gun swinging toward the door. It was the opening Evans needed. With a strangled cry, he lunged, not at David, but at the desk, grabbing the heavy marble base of a table lamp. He swung it wildly, hitting David's gun arm. The gun went off a deafening roar in the enclosed space. A bullet shattered the window behind me. One of the officers fired. A single, precise shot. David jolted, a look of profound surprise on his face. The gun clattered to the floor. He looked down at the dark, spreading stain on his crisp white shirt. Then his knees buckled, and he collapsed. Chaos erupted. The officers rushed in, securing the gun, shouting into their radios. One knelt beside David, applying pressure. Evans stood frozen, the lamp still in his hand, sobbing uncontrollably. Claire ran to me, pulling me into a fierce hug. I looked over her shoulder at David on the floor. His eyes were open, staring at the ceiling. The cunning, the calculation, the monstrous greed, all gone, replaced by empty stillness. The master plan had ended not with a poison-induced whimper in Switzerland, but with a violent, messy bang in a Park Avenue office. A detective arrived, followed by paramedics. They worked on David, but it was futile. The officer's shot had been fatal. As they covered him with a sheet, I felt nothing. No grief, and no triumph. Just a vast, hollow exhaustion. The detective, a weary-faced man named Rossi, took statements. Evans did now, in handcuffs, babbled his confession, implicating himself and the dead man at every turn, desperate to prove his cooperation. I told my story, why voice flat. Claire corroborated everything, presenting the damning evidence from the garment bag. In the whirlwind that followed, the trips to the precinct, the interviews with the full story emerged. Maria Flores was apprehended at JFK, trying to board a flight to Buenos Aires with a suitcase full of cash from David's safe. She cut a deal that her testimony and the mountain of evidence she'd provided sealing the posthumous case against David and the living one against Robert Evans. The scandal was enormous. The society pages that had once covered our wedding now detailed the sordid tale of bigamy, the murder for hire, and a fallen financier. The $10 million insurance policy was voided due to fraud. David's firm collapsed under the weight of the scandal and its pre-existing liquidity issues. 6 months later, I sat in a sun-drenched conference room in a different lawyer's office. Peter Caldwell, the lawyer whose name I'd used as a bluff, that now represented me in reality. Across the table sat the attorneys for David's estate, what little there was of it, and the lawyers for the medical malpractice insurers for Dr. Evans. The settlements were substantial. A wrongful death payout from David's estate, a bitter irony. A multi-million-dollar settlement from the insurers of the now imprisoned Dr. Evans and the clinic that had negligently credentialed him. The money was blood money, but it was also freedom. I used a portion of it to establish the Hannah Winslow Foundation that focused on supporting victims of coercive control, financial abuse, and domestic homicide plots. I called it the Mercury Foundation, named for the god of thieves and tricksters, but also for the neurotoxin David had once planned to use. A reminder that poison often comes disguised as care. Maria Flores, having testified, received a reduced sentence for her part as a coerced accomplice. I didn't forgive her, but I understood her. We'd both been pawns in David's game, though she had chosen to play for a time. I felt no need to ever see her again. One crisp autumn afternoon, I met Claire for coffee at a sidewalk cafe downtown, not far from the old neighborhoods. "You look like yourself again," she said, squeezing my hand. Did I feel like someone new? I replied, and I did. The weight was gone. The constant fear, the performance, the pretending. I was lighter, but harder, wiser. My phone buzzed at a message from the foundation's director about a new grant. I smiled at a real one. I had a purpose, a life. Looking out at the bustling street, the ordinary people living their ordinary, unplotted lives, I felt a peace I hadn't known in years. The stains on the silk had been permanent, but they'd led me to wash the whole fabric of my life clean. David Winslow had tried to write my ending, but the final chapter, turned out that was mine alone to write. And it was just beginning.